Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. This is Mike Gillaspia here in our 3 News digital studio, and we wanted to get you caught up on some breaking news that we had at the top of our 5 o'clock newscast and that we'll be following up with in our 6 o'clock newscast here on KIII tonight. Big news here is that the Nueces County Medical Examiner has released the autopsy results for Caleb Harris, the college student who you will recall went missing back in March and whose remains were found back in the end of June 24th. The autopsy, again, coming out and getting to us just prior to news time at 5 o'clock. I'm going to read you some summary from that, and then we'll get into the autopsy report itself. But basically, the Nueces County Medical Examiner lists the manner in which Caleb Harris died as undetermined, but says that there does not appear to be any evidence of homicide or traumatic injury. You may recall that at least with the Harris family, that was a question that was out there, is that they do not believe, and said at the time that his remains were discovered, they did not believe that this was an accident. But again, the Nueces County Medical Examiner saying there is no evidence of a homicide or traumatic injury based on what they were seeing in this. Also, the report states that the condition of the body when it was found could be obscuring subtle injuries and or additional significant natural disease, and that the, quote, exact details leading up to the terminal event and death are currently unclear. So a bit of a mystery still surrounding that based on the autopsy report. Not a lot of answers as some folks were hoping for, but again, this just coming to us this afternoon. Also, it states that if further relevant information becomes available in the future, then the office's findings can change. But this is based on now and based on a report of the remains of missing college student Caleb Harris. Let's talk about the autopsy report itself. We have 9 pages from the Nueces County Medical Examiner's office. That's in addition to another 16 pages from the Center for Human Identification. You'll remember that the remains, after they were discovered, had to be sent off in order for there to do a further analysis there. And so that comes back again with about 16 pages. 9 pages, though, talk about the autopsy and talk about what the Nueces County Medical Examiner's office was able to find. And again, just highlighting a few of the things that were here in their examination of the remains of Caleb Harris. As we mentioned a moment ago in the summary, it says there are no obvious traumatic defects to the remains or the clothing, but the skeleton is near complete with some bones being absent. I won't go into the details about that, but again, what they were able to recover, the remains that they were able to recover, you'll need to imagine a skeleton, and I don't know a better way to put that. And the testing and the examination that they did was based on remains of that nature. Also talking about the remains, talking about the skeleton, the Nueces County Medical Examiner's report says that the spine is partially complete with the absence of the cervical vertebrae. In fact, as you read the report, you'll see that there are several bones randomly placed throughout the body that are not there. And again, not knowing a whole lot about this, but you would imagine the way the remains were found, how long they had been out there, that can't be an unusual thing. Going also through the Nueces County Medical Examiner's autopsy report here, it talked about the majority of the organs being absent. Again, in a state of decay, we would imagine that that is what you would expect to find for a body that has been exposed to the elements for as long as this one possibly had. Looking again at the autopsy report, again, they talk about finding a partially skeletonized young adult male. And I'm reading directly from the report here, and that's why you'll hear some of these terms that you may not have heard before. These are very particular ways these things are written. Talked about the partially skeletonized young adult male, a Caucasian male, approximately 20 to 35 years of age. Also, the organs that they were able to recover included a kidney and adrenal gland. Going on in the report, it does detail what you know if you've been following this case from the beginning, that the remains were recovered in a wastewater pump station. That was after Caleb Harris was reported missing back on March the 4th. The remains were recovered then on June 24th. Also, there was clothing recovered, and you can, again, in the autopsy report, it details some of that clothing and what they were able to find, again, consistent with the missing young man, Caleb Harris. It says that there were, it says terminal circumstances surrounding the death is unclear as per investigative law enforcement agency. In other words, this is undetermined. There's nothing that they were able to find in doing this analysis and in putting together this report that would say this is what caused the death. That's still a mystery here. And we know that a lot of folks were hoping that that was something that would be cleared up in the autopsy report, but that comes across here again as undetermined being the key word. Identification, it says possible by forensic dental analysis. One of the things that you'll read in the autopsy report is that the teeth, the skeleton, the teeth were in fairly good condition. However, identification was positive by DNA comparison. So again, saying this absolutely is Caleb Harris. That we know. What we do not know is how he may have died. I want to read to you something that's a bit lengthy if you'll stick with me, but this comes from the autopsy report itself. It's the bottom line, basically, signed off, and it says under the heading conclusion, and here's what they write. It says, after a complete autopsy examination, including toxicological analysis and microscopic examination of the residual organs, and in consideration of the available investigative information, it is our opinion that the cause of death of Caleb Wilson Harris, a 21-year-old male, cannot be determined with certainty. The decedent was found in a wastewater pump system in an advanced state of decomposition with skeletonization. While no significant traumatic injuries are identified, the condition of the remains could have obscured subtle injuries and/or additional significant natural disease. In other words, they're saying the condition that the remains were in, there could have been something more there. It could be hidden. We can only go based on what we know about the remains that are put in front of us, the remains that we receive. And it was a skeletonized set of remains, and so they're saying, based on what we see, the cause of death here is undetermined. Also, this is important to note. It says that toxicology analysis is negative. The exact details leading up to the terminal event and death are currently unclear. Hence, the cause and manner of death are classified as undetermined at this time. If additional information becomes available in the future, then the cause and manner of death can be amended if needed. Now, that's just kind of a quick pulling out of some of the things that we see in the summary there. Again, 9 pages coming to us from the Nueces County Medical Examiner's Office. And it goes into a lot more detail that we're not obviously going to share here. But it does bring us to another question here. Now that the cause of death has been ruled as undetermined, with the medical examiner saying, based on the remains that we received and the analysis that we've been able to do, we can't say with any certainty what caused the death here. Given that announcement that there does not appear to be any evidence of homicide, you have to ask the question now, will the Corpus Christi Police Department and the other investigative agencies who have been a part of this since Caleb Harris went missing back in March, will they now have to make a decision about whether to keep the investigation open or whether to close it based on this autopsy report. That's something that we'll have to be asking and something that they'll have to consider. I'm sure they have already put their minds together about that and are making those kinds of decisions. But again, based on this report, the cause of death is undetermined. The family says they believe there was something more to that and they would like an investigation deeper into that. CCPD will have to determine whether or not to do that or whether to say, at this point, we're going to close the investigation. Again, the report stating the toxicology reports were negative, indicating that Caleb Harris, as far as the medical examiner can determine, did not have drugs or alcohol in his system when he died. There appears to be no evidence of homicide or traumatic injury, again leading to the conclusion by the Nueces County Medical Examiner's Office that Caleb Harris, that his death is undetermined. All right, so this is just a quick overview. Again, we just got this information before our 5 o'clock newscast. We do want to invite you to join us for KIII News at 6 o'clock. We're continuing to go through these papers and we will have an additional report there, and we hope you can see that. For now, though, that is our report here from our KIII Digital Studio. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike Gillaspia.